to participate in this meetup and you join to our community. And as you mentioned, it's your first time in Poland, so virtually, but it's a great pleasure to host you in our meetup. I would like to say some words about the story with Chris and Jimmy, because as I mentioned Jimmy before the meeting, many years ago, I found the webpage Chris DNA. And next I found the book of Henrik Kniberg and his articles. It was fantastic. I said my wife, okay, this book was fantastic. It's very short and practice, not more than 100 pages, yeah? And theory is only 3 pages, yeah. A lot of draws and it's fantastic for me. But next I found the articles and the books of Jimmy. Toolbox for Agile Coach, visual examples, and the article, for example, about health check model. We in iSolution implemented a lot of this practice. Of course, we adopted to our culture and our context, but it worked, and it worked all the time in our company. So last year we decided with Piotr Gryczan, from my colleague from iSolution, to translate last book of Jimmy, Decision-Making Principle and Practices, because we think about how to solve the problem with meetings and making decisions. It's a fantastic short book. We've inspired 27 practices to use in every teams, in every organization. So I would say that Chris DNA especially inspired me also to build our Team Toolbox platform, because we built the platform to cultivate culture, to build engagement, motivating people, using Management 3.0, but we use happiness index and competency matrix from Chris DNA. So now it's fantastic for me. Okay, guys, this is the short story how we meet with Jimmy. Now, now we would like this meeting share into 2 stages. First, presentation of Jimmy. Next, we have Q&A session, and maybe we share our community to breakout rooms to work in teams. Okay? So, Jimmy, it's your turn. Have a good journey. Good luck for everybody.
Thank you so much for that introduction. I'm humbled to hear how Chris DNA and my books have inspired you. So yeah, hi everyone, and good evening and welcome. This is I'm going to talk about how to reach flow through visualization. So Piotr said I'm going to roughly be speaking for maybe, I don't know, 45-ish minutes. And during the presentation, I would like you to take a post-it or a notebook and write down ideas that inspires you or that triggers you. And then, if time allows, and if we want to, we'll split into breakout rooms using the Zoom functionality. And I will ask you to share takeaways for, I don't know, 10-ish minutes, and then we'll all return back and we have a Q&A and continue the discussion. So feel free to take notes if you want to. So let's see if my technology here works. Plenty of screens open. So flow through visualization. For a long time, I've always been mesmerized by visualization. So I'm a visual person. I draw a lot as a kid. And in my work life as an Agile coach, I also get to draw a lot on whiteboards. And now I make drawings when doing blogs and stuff. So I've always been mesmerized with visualizations. And when I became an Agile coach, I saw so many teams having really inspiring things going on their whiteboard. So I started collecting visualizations. So I harvested them. So I always took a tour, or once in a while I took a tour over the office where I was as a consultant. I had the luxury of visiting many different companies, and I took photos of what I saw with their permission, of course. So over the years, I collected more and more and more photos of different visualizations and different ways teams used their whiteboard in order to visualize what they were working on or improvement efforts. And then, I don't know, a few years later, I realized that, maybe, wait a second, this could be turned into a book. And when I told my colleagues about it, my idea, everyone went, damn it, that's a brilliant idea. Why didn't I come up with that first? So yeah, so it turned out to be the book Toolbox for Agile Coach, 96 Visualization Examples. I'm currently harvesting more ideas, so there might be a follow-up next year. So 56 more visualizations or something. And what did I learn? So I got the impression that the teams that were great at visualizing their work were far better of translating ideas into deliverables. They were far better at discussing, planning, improving, and they seem to have more fun as well. So why is that? What's going on under the hood here? So this is my take. So visualization is, in some sense, all about feedback. And now I'm gonna see if I can show you this video. I'm not sure if you're gonna hear the sound or not. Let's try.
Yes.
Can you hear the sound? Can you give a thumbs up or something? Cool. So they're playing ping pong. Okay, cool. What's up with that? Well, actually, it's a commercial to starters for broadband internet connection. But the person here, one person is wearing this goggles, virtual reality goggles, connecting to a GoPro camera. So he or she experiences the world through the GoPro camera. And the same goes to the audio. So there's a microphone and headphones. And there's a lag. So they run the experiment in with different lags. So this is a 3-second lag. And they also have a 1/3 lag. So imagining living the world with this lag. I don't know, dancing, coordinating. So it's just 1/3 of a lag, just ruins your ability to interact with your environment. The sound of Swedish. And let's see. If you want to watch the full video, we're not going to watch the full video now. It's called Living with Lag, an Oculus Rift experiment. This is the everyday thing of cooking food. So, yeah, and bowling. Yeah, you get the idea. So, why is this so hard? Well, there's a delay between I do something and then I get feedback on what I did. So imagine other situations, driving the car with no or little feedback. So you can't feel the vibrations from the road in the steering wheel. There's no force when you push the pedal. You can't see any speedometer or anything. You would be in danger in traffic. Or playing any kind of game with a delay between your auditorial or balance organs, you're just going to screw everything up. Or you're a doctor, you want monitoring, you want instant feedback, you want all those alerts and measurements of blood rate and whatnot. But still, our offices looks like this. They're empty. They're usually very commonly void of visual feedback. So we do stuff sure, I can see what happens locally if my test fails or not, but no visual feedback on the overall progress or overview and stuff like that. So visualization is all about feedback in one sense. It's also about behaviors. I was working. Oh, what happened now? Sorry. I was working with one team. They had a beautiful board going on. It's a pretty complicated one. I'll talk a little bit more about it later. But for some reason, they did not want to stand up in front of the board. They kind of held their distance as if they were angry at it or something. I don't know. So they were sitting far back and doing the round or talking about the daily stand-up. So going, oh, I think I was working on that one. I can't read it from over here, but I'm sure the post-it is over there somewhere. Can you move it for me? And very shallow discussions and non-productive, and the daily stand-up took forever. And it didn't matter if I told them to stand up, get rid of the chair, stand in front of the board to actually see what you're talking about. So I got tired of that, and I stayed late one evening, and I draw a line on the floor. So one person came by, was also working late. So Jimmy, what are you doing? Oh, never mind me. This is just an experiment. Ignore, move on. And the next day when they arrived, they did not feel comfortable until they stood up and have moved themselves inside the square. And ta-da, like magic, they were now standing closer to the board. They could see what was actually written on the post-its. And they could, and they actually interacted with the board. So the quality of the data stand-up vastly improved, and it became shorter as well. So this is weird. I didn't explain it to anyone what that line meant, but just the fact that that line was there triggered behaviors. And I think that's an important aspect of visualization, at least physical ones. The coloring, the moving of the tactile movement of the post-it and the lines, they trigger behaviors and they shape the way we communicate. And it is also about shared understanding. I think this is super important. Unless we actually visualize something, we might fool ourselves into believing that we're talking about the same thing. Oh, yeah, I agree. It's a shape. Oh, yes, I agree. Same shape, but wait a second. Once you visualize it and talk about it, you realize that no, you were carrying around a different understanding of the problem or situation or the plan. And once you visualize it, then you can talk about it, and you have the same mental picture of what's going on, as opposed to carrying around individual mental pictures. But this is also tricky, or it's a trap maybe, or a danger, because the reality is too complex. It doesn't allow itself to be captured in post-its and whiteboards or a Jira or whatever. So when you visualize, you choose the angle to shine the light on. And the visualization is, in some sense, a shadow of reality. And you can visualize reality from different perspectives. So you can choose how you visualize your workflow or improvement efforts or whatnot. But depending on the visualization you choose, that's going to shape the conversation. So if you have a visualization of work describing what each individual do, well, you're going to optimize for the conversation is going to be about how to keep people busy. If your visualization shows the flow of tasks, well, the conversation is going to be about how can we improve the flow. So it's you need to make a conscious decision on how to visualize, and maybe try different angles or perspectives to drive different kinds of dialogue. So I mentioned workflows. Please type comments or questions in the chat. I might address them as we go if I see them. I have the chat window open. Otherwise, we'll save them to them. So let's talk a little about workflows. Well, maybe we can try this shout out. This is a big supermarket in Sweden. Please shout out, what flows through this system? Anyone? So what is this supermarket trying to optimize? What flow is it trying to optimize for?
The people, right? Customers.
Yeah, customers and products, I guess, right? So they want to have a super easy flow of getting products and merchandise into the supermarket, and then they also want to maximize the flow of people so that they buy as much as possible, and they interact with exchanging money. What's going on here? What is this flow optimizing for?
Like the gear steel, I don't know how it's like the carriage, chassis.
Yeah, well, maybe it's a too small picture, but it's a picture of a car manufacturing plant. So in Toyota's dream world, for example, they want as a customer, you enter the shop, you fill in the details of the colors and the type of wheels and whatnot, and then you click enter, and then the production begins, and 10 minutes later you have your car delivered. They're not there yet, but I guess that's what they're aiming for.
In 3 months.
Yeah, 3 months. Tesla even longer. Next one. What's flowing through here? Well, patients. Maybe it's too obvious.
Patients.
Yeah. What's weird for me is that many hospitals don't optimize for the flow of patients. They optimize for keeping doctors busy, which typically ends with really, really long internal queues. So you have to wait a week before bouncing back and forth between different doctors. And what's this one? What are they optimizing for at a fire station?
Fast response, right?
Exactly. So they're not optimizing for flow here. They're optimizing for being able to respond fast. So they're not being rewarded for number of fires they put out. They're being rewarded for the time it takes for them to react. And in the meantime, they practice, right? So they practice firefighting, they do drills, they teach fire safety. So they do a lot of work when it's not burning anywhere. So that it's less hazardous. And many teams live in both worlds. Many Scrum teams or Agile teams we are both trying to optimize for our delivery, maximizing the impact we make, and we also need to react and act fast on incidents or problems in production or urgent requests from other teams. So that's a true hassle for many teams, I think, to find a balance and how to cope with that and how to gain a sense of control. Hopefully, I will show a few tips that will increase a sense of control living in those things. And here we have an Agile team. What's flowing through this system?
Tickets.
Yeah. Well, yes, but I guess
story points.
no. Oh, hopefully it's ideas on things we can deliver and build that will address a need of the customer or resolve a problem. But sure, once we understood it, it's been translated to tickets, and we want them to be done as fast as possible. So let's do my super simple summary of Lean. This is perhaps all familiar to you, so I'm going to do this fast. So Lean is all about focus on the flow, optimize the flow, not keeping people busy. That comes secondary to balance workload. So if you have an overcrowded system, how do you even start optimizing something? If traffic has grinded to a halt, or if all projects in your company is just moving super slow because everyone is so busy to the brim, well, there's no place to start optimizing for flow. There's no space here to build a roundabout, or even to build install traffic safety measures like traffic lights or safe railings or anything. So if the system is overcrowded, there is no room to improve on it. It's just yeah. So where do you start? Well, I'm going to come to that. But first, if we have a bottleneck in our system, in our organization, it's going to have a couple of weird effects as well. So let's pretend we have a real problem with our continuous deployment pipeline or test automation servers or whatnot. Something has happened, or we might have a totally overburdened team that acts as a bottleneck. Well, people are going to start acting weirdly. Some will start to cheat the system. They will bypass quality check. They will do things manually but sloppy just to get things to production and ship and meet the deadline. Others, if you're standing on the sideline, you might be frustrated. I don't see progress. I need more status report meetings. That's not going to solve anything. It's actually going to add work to the system. You might be frustrated. I'm stuck. I don't get anywhere. I'm waiting for that reply. It never comes. Well, I want to feel busy. I want to do something. So I'm going to start a new task. That's just going to add to the traffic jam. It's going to worsen the problem. And if you're a person in part of the group that has authority over deadlines and budgets, you might feel that you help the team or teams by postponing the deadline or adding more people to it. But unless you resolve the bottleneck, you're not solving everything. It's a nice gesture. You acknowledge the problem. But unless you actually reveal the system, relieve the pressure, and help out sorting the bottleneck, you're not actually improving anything for the long term. And some people just might give up and say, okay, screw this. I'm not moving anywhere. I'm not getting anywhere. I don't get a response, or that system is always down. So I'm just going to sit and wait. And maybe that's the best situation, best course of action. I'm at least not making things worse. But what makes it worse? What if there's an urgent production problem or an urgent request? Everyone is super busy, so there's no room to handle that. And if you still do it, you're going to cause even more interruptions to the traffic. So horrible, right? So what does Lean teaches us? Well, first of all, stop the flow of incoming traffic. No more projects. Don't make the situation work, and relieve pressure from the system. Park traffic, park projects, so that we create space on the road, and we free up people. So we now have talented people who are available to help out, to broaden the road, to improve the continuous deployment pipeline, to build more APIs or tooling or whatnot. And they can also help out to push the project or work that is stuck over the finish line. And with these three simple actions, if you just keep at this for long enough, well, you're going to have resolved the bottleneck, you're going to broaden the road, and you're going to have a nice, steady flow of traffic. And you know that once I get on the highway, I am convinced that I will reach my destination safe and fast. And what does Lean teach us about how to maintain the flow? Well, very few simple principles. Limit the number of cars on the highway. Put a VIP limit on number of projects in your company, or number of parallel user stories in your sprint. And make sure to have enough slack in the system so that you can handle urgent work and continuously work on improving. Don't plan the sprint to the brim. Don't fill your calendar to the last hour. Keep plenty of slack to handle urgencies and to do improvements. And don't start new work unless you're finished with something. And I'm not referring to the single task. I'm referring to the whole project or the whole user story. And yeah, it's as simple as that. Ta-da! So through the rest of the presentation, I'm going to show examples of how you visually can help the team with these things. So how to visualize the flow, how to relieve, well, how to show how you have relieved pressure from the system, how to prevent overflow, to spot bottlenecks, agree upon rules. Prevent overflow, agree upon rules, reveal bottlenecks, optimize the flow, and the creation of new habits. Just checking the chat here, chat for questions. So yeah, hopefully that's gonna do magic and solve everything. No, of course not, but hopefully you will find some piece of inspiration here that you want to try out. So step one, visualize your work. You can always visualize your work, no matter what you're doing or what you're working. And you can visualize it in different perspectives. What I'm going to talk about today is that you visualize the flow of work. So one post-it, for example, represents the work, and the columns or the grids represent different phases or stages of that workflow. So we have the super simple ones, to do, doing, done. Some people call that a Kanban board. It's not. For you to call it a Kanban board, you have to have VIP limits and you need to measure the lead time. This is simply a fancy to-do list. Many Scrum teams, they work on multiple user stories, or they have multiple sprint goals, and for each goal, They break down the tasks that need to be done, and then they move them accordingly. And once all tasks are in the completed column, hopefully the goal is achieved. But it can be more complicated. Well, first of all, it doesn't have to go from left and right. It can go up and down. And the workflow can have multiple starting points like this one. So some work originates from the backlog, others are reported bugs, and some are urgent requests, and they can exit in many different ways. So some work gets parked, other work ends up in production, or we archive it, or can't resolve, or yeah, so it can be way more advanced than just to doing done. Sorry. This is one example. Let's see here. So what's going on here? Now I wish I could point in the screen, but no, my hand disappears. Can I? Oh yeah, the mouse pointer works. So what's going on here? So it's pretty complicated, but I'm going to show a few things. This is one team at Spotify. They worked on sound drivers that were installed into physical speakers, and they released a new version of their driver every second week. So the top row here represents the version they're working on now. And at the top here, they visualize their cadence. So we can see that they're on their first Thursday of a 2-week loop. They didn't call it sprints. They just went because they didn't, yeah, doesn't matter. So they were two-week iterations. So they started with the planning, team meeting, but actually, no, wait a second, release testing, and then it's released on that Thursday, and then they work for a week, and they have a retro the second Friday, and so on, and then they rinse and repeat. So the top row represents the things that's going into next release, and the row beneath that is the upcoming release, 2 weeks from now. And the product owner the team had tons of ideas on things they could add and do, and the product owner's job was to pick things that should go into the next release. However, once the first week of the iteration had ended, the product owner was not allowed to add more stuff into that iteration, to that version. So then he had to add it to the next one. And there was a cap, so there was a WIP limit of 3 things. And only once the team has started working on something, he was allowed to add the third one. And then there were things for continuous improvement works and whatnot. So this is one visualization of flow. This is another one. This is an aggregated view for 3 teams, I believe. It's hard to read, but the colors represent different. Let me show you this one. So there's one area currently in progress. It's this green box here, work in progress. Those are the epics currently being worked on. And this epic beneath here is being shipped. It's worked, the finished work, they're happy with testing, and now they're rolling it out. These are things that they have shipped in September, things they shipped in August, July, and June. So they have a history here of things they shipped and released. And once an epic is done and they're ready to start a new one, well, they pick from the next/ready here. And up here to the upper right, there are things that they hope to be able to achieve within this quarter. They have ideas for next quarter, and then possible ideas for the future. So this is a simple aggregated overview for several teams. Oh, stop, wait. You might think we are currently living in a world of remoting. Damn it, Jimmy. Yeah, I know we are. And I know that many teams use planning tools such as Jira, Trello, or Microsoft Teams. And it might feel tricky to implement some of these ideas if you're using Jira or Trello. I think Microsoft Teams has I actually haven't worked with Microsoft Teams, but in Microsoft Teams, I believe, also have this digital whiteboard functionality. Am I right? Does anyone know? Yeah. So I think Jira is brilliant for keeping track of tasks, for adding screenshots, for commenting code, for sending requests between teams. But I think they are worthless when it comes to visualizing an aggregated overview that will help you discuss progress, reveal bottlenecks, and plan, and have a shared understanding of the roadmap. So if you're not already using it, I would recommend you try a visual whiteboard tool. Jamboard, if you're using Google Suite, Jamboard, maybe it's a super simple tool. Maybe it's good enough. There's also tools like Mural and Miro with different subscription schemes, license schemes to them. But still, I hope, even if you're using Jira or Trello, I hope you get inspiration on how you might incorporate these ideas. And all my examples here are relying on whiteboards and Post-its. Hopefully that still can inspire you to do things. If you're using a digital whiteboard such as Jamboard, Mural, Miro, well, they're in some cases even more powerful and adaptable than whiteboards and Post-its. They're infinite and they have lots of built-in functionality.
Excuse me, sorry for interrupting you. Would you mind to repeat which of the softwares is connected to the Google Suite, the Jamboard? Yeah, yes. Am I right?
The Jamboard, yes.
Yeah, thank you very much.
It's stupidly simple. That's the beauty of it. All you can do is add sticky notes. They're all square, and you can change color of them, and you can change the text. And then you can draw lines, which is super hard to draw them straight. And that's it, more or less. But the simplicity of it makes it, there's no threshold to learn it. And you focus on the content and not the fancy layout. Actually, if you're using the Google Suite, you can actually use Google Slides as well and pretend it's a whiteboard. There are trial versions for Mural and Miro, but I think you're pretty soon, if you like it, you're pretty soon going to find yourself paying a license fee. And then step 2. So first visualize, and then we need to relieve pressure from the system. If we feel that everything is grinding to a halt, it's moving very slow. And as this guy so beautifully puts it, it's as simple as putting things in order. Many times I encounter companies or teams who have prioritized their work or their projects or their stories in musts and should and could. And many companies have 20 must projects or 100 must thingies. These are all super important. Work on them. That doesn't help anyone, because from a team's perspective, you have a 2-week time horizon or 1-week time sprint horizon. So you need to pick and choose as a team. We can't work on everything at the same time, because that doesn't make any sense. So we are going to select a few things that we think make sense. So if you have too many musts or too many critical, or you as a product manager or product owner or leader screams, these are all urgent. Well, guess who? The team is going to do the prioritization for you. So first step is to order the importance. So when a team is ready to start working on something new, what's next and what's second and what's third, and make that list limited. So in this example, the list is 10 long. The rest is maybe later. This can be a super painful conversation to have, because you will have, there's going to be someone who screams for the critical importance of every single thing in the must section. So you need to kind of buckle up the energy and hash it out and agree upon an order and discuss, actually, is this one more important than that one, and so forth. Hopefully, if you truly believe that multitasking creates tons of waste and is the road to hell, and that we can finish everything faster if we do it more focused, one thing at a time, or at least a few things at a time. Hopefully that will make that conversation or debate less painful. So, but once we have agreed upon the order, we also kind of indirectly have agreed upon, let's not do this right now. Let's park the efforts on this. Maybe you even need to kind of check out things from the repository and for later. So visualizing what's parked can be a great idea to show people that we're not working on this now. We might pick it up later. And there's different ways to do this. You can have simple parking lots, or you can park by person, meaning you show who worked on this the last time. So if Robert in this picture is going to pick up some work, who should he ask? So if he's picking up my work, he knows that he can talk to me to get started. Also, visualizing not now could be super valuable. I worked with one team and they couldn't contain themselves. They were so excited to start working on stuff far down the backlog, even though it was not meant for this release, because it was exciting and fun, and they kind of did it under the table, under the radar. So we visualized that, no, you're not allowed to, not now. This comes later. And that actually helped us focus on the stuff for the release and not kind of creatively derailing. And also, don't drag a zombie. If you're working on a project or one of your projects is just making slow or no progress because there's tons of dependencies and you're waiting for replies from everywhere and whatnot, well, park it. Don't spend energy and time on it. It's not worth it. Wait a while, just park it and focus on the other stuff, and then revisit it and come back and see if things have sorted themselves out. If you choose to do this, you of course need to communicate this to the ones you're waiting for, so they're not surprised that you're kind of paused work because it's moving slow. You're going to free up capacity and focus to the other stuff. So, and then step 3, agree upon the rules. Have a proper discussion on the rules of the game. Document them and visualize them so that you can discuss how to improve them and hold each other accountable to those rules. And it could be stuff like the definition of done. If you don't have one, I strongly encourage you to discuss it at least. Maybe you have a routine for the daily stand-up or the sprint planning session or the retrospective. So document your routines so that you can challenge them and improve them and hold each other accountable for honoring them. Maybe you have a working agreement. If you don't, I strongly advise you to have that kind of workshop where you discuss and clarify what do we expect from each other when we communicate and collaborate, because those discussions can be truly interesting, and it's going to force you to agree upon some code of conduct or clarify expectations on each other. And if you write them down and put them up on the board, it's easier to hold each other accountable when you feel that someone is cheating or breaking the agreements you've made. Furthermore, it could be wise to clarify when and how are we allowed to move post-its? What criteria is required for me to be allowed to move it from work in progress to review, or from review to test, or when is it considered ready for test, or when is test considered done? And what does it mean for us when all tasks are in the completed column? Is the story finished, or is there more work? So actually agreeing upon the rules for moving tickets can reveal disagreements, or that you have different ideas on the rules of the game. And if you have a very complicated, fancy board, it could be a wise idea to create a legend to help others understand the board by explaining the colors or the icons and stuff like that. Cool. I'm going to pause and look at the questions here. Any questions or any comments from anyone before I move on? Because I'm getting tired of hearing my own voice. Any comments so far? I'm gonna do the silent game and just wait for someone.
Yes.
So I would ask probably about your favorite tools that you're using on a daily basis, because in my case, I would say my go-to tool is Miro, to be honest, simply because it also has the integrations with other systems, which is very convenient, because I can potentially like bring all the data from Jira and basically throw post-it notes and shapes and text and images or screenshots at the tasks at the same time, interact with them. This is very convenient, but like you said, it's paid, right? But I would probably ask about your go-to tool or tools, and actually maybe you even have something that you could show us besides this presentation, or maybe there's something waiting for us at the end, like stuff that you're working on or worked in the past, like near past, that you could show off, like real world examples, because I think the best way to learn is by examples from real world.
Great questions. So I'm going to take them. So there are two ones, my favorite tools, and then if I have some concrete examples. My favorite tools are, personally, I love Trello, so I live my life in Trello, but that's on an individual level. At my current company, I'm working with Kry, a medtech company. I don't know why, but historical reason, they started off using Miro. So I've learned that tool. However, if you're free to choose and you have Jira, I would probably go for Mural as well. It's slightly more powerful and has, as I understood it, really nice integrations with Jira. So yeah, but when doing workshops, I tend to prefer Jamboard actually, because it's so easy, it's so uncomplicated. Getting started with Miro or Mural, well, you almost need a 1 hour training course to use it properly. So if you're going to throw in a bunch of new people and some who are new to the tool, I tend to go for Jamboard. When it comes to concrete examples, well, I do have examples from my current client. I'm not allowed to share, sadly. But I am trying to harvest or collect screenshots of good visualizations that I can share. No, sorry, but I am working on it. So hopefully there will be a blog post or video coming up soon, I hope, that can give some more concrete tips. But perhaps later on in the Q&A, if you participants here have screenshots you can share, perhaps we can make that happen if you can share amongst ourselves here.
That's a great idea. Thank you for actually pointing out to this. And yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that question. Sorry, can you say your name?
Andrzej, you were very
Andrzej,
close right
All
now.
right.
Yeah.
I was confused with the Z, Andrzej. Okay, thank you. So, that was a nice interrupting us not to hear my own voice all the time. So, how prevent overflow? How do we do that? Well, the answer is simple. Limit work in progress. Don't multitask. Don't swap between too many things. So if you're doing, so Kanban teaches us, for example, to limit work in progress, and that can be done in multiple ways. In this picture here, there's a limit in the test column, for example. So this team only allows themselves to have 2 tickets in the test column. All right, but what if I want to start testing a 3rd one? Well, you're not allowed to. You need to help out finish testing one of the 2 things in that column. And once there is 1 free slot, then you're allowed to move a ticket to the testing column. Same for the coding or doing. So there's 2 in the doing column and 2 ready for test. So that's 4 in total. And the limit is 4. So you're not allowed to start a new task unless you help out finish testing and then move something to testing and so on. And this team also has a limit of 5 in their backlog. So they probably have another area, maybe later or future thing is somewhere on the side. I was working with one team. They had agreed upon WIP limits, but they were crap at honoring their decisions. So they always cheated and added more stuff. And we couldn't figure it out how to behave better. But then that team moved room. So then I took the opportunity to just kind of what I did with the line in the floor. It's not a very agile coachy thingy, but I decided to do it anyway. I took the opportunity to kind of redo their board, and I made the grid so small that they couldn't fit more than 1 post-it, or well, actually 2 in some cases. So I made the space reflect the WIP limit. And then it became pretty obvious if they kind of were cheating, the post-its were becoming stacked. So you can easily see where they broke the rules. So, and this worked. So it's as simple as that. Limit ongoing parallel work in some sense. But then we have all these critical urgencies, requests, production problems. So many teams do have an urgent lane or fix now or stuff like that. And I guess that's fine because you do have to react sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes you need to react to urgent requests or problems. But since that is going to cause an interruption, it's going to sabotage your flow, you're going to task switching, you're going to lose momentum. And once you're done with the urgent fix, you have to kind of rediscover what you were working on yesterday. So if you have an urgent column, I strongly advise you to, as a team, discuss what are our criteria to treat something as urgent. What's the criteria for us dropping whatever we're doing and focus on this urgent work? So in this picture, it says the criteria are: there's a fire in production, the continuous integration pipeline is broken, or a whole other team can't move forward because they're waiting for something from us. So if the request or the urgent thingy fulfills any of these 3 criteria, cool, then we do it. Otherwise, we're going to put it on the backlog and discuss if we're going to do it next sprint. And as you can see in this example, there are no space to plan urgent work. Because if you can even have a discussion about whether or not you can plan it for tomorrow or next week, well, then it's not urgent. It goes into the backlog. And then I had a colleague working at the company. She was the head of the department. And then a couple of team members came and asked her, can you buy us some plastic firefighting helmets? What? Yeah. Don't ask any questions. Just buy them. Okay, sure. So she did and had them over to them. And it turned out that they wanted to use them as kind of a visual information radiator. So they had this icon, this sticky that they put on urgent tasks on the whiteboard. And what they also did was that they put, when those 2 people or that group of people that were working on this urgent problem, put on their fire helmets. And that sent a really, really clear message to everyone else inside the team and everywhere in the office that whatever you're doing, don't disturb or mess with us right now. We're deep in shit and we're trying to fix something important. So if anything, give us coffee and a hug. And if you see us walking around in the office looking for someone, well, help us find that someone. So that's, yeah, that worked really well. And they used it for at least a year, maybe still, I'm not sure. Cool. And then we want to reveal bottlenecks. We want to spot when we have a traffic jam building up inside our project or inside our team. So where do thou hide waste? So many teams have, I've seen, they have a column called test or testing. But what does that really mean when a post-it is in that column? Is someone testing on it right now? Is it ready for test, or we wait? Yeah. So if you suspect, if you have a growing number of post-its in a column and they're not moving, you might have a hidden queue building up. So it could be a good idea to split that column into 2. So ready for test and testing. So then you might reveal that we only have one person actually doing work here, and then we have a queue building up, an internal queue. So in this picture, let's see, I can go full screen. So here we have a column called ready for test and then testing. So we had that thing, and this was empty. So that was obviously not the bottleneck, because we were good at helping out actually testing. But then they had doing in review ready for test, and it turns out there was a hidden internal queue in the in review, because there were some tasks that the team could review themselves. Other tasks had to be reviewed by another team. And that turned out to be a bottleneck. There were a lot of waiting going on. So once they realized that, they could have a discussion with that team, and they improved their dependency and collaboration. Many times you feel that you do have external dependencies, or other people interrupt you, sabotage your focus and flow with urgent requests and whatnot. And if this is something that annoys you or disturbs you, you can of course have a opinion-driven dialogue, or you have a data-driven dialogue. So, for example, when the CTO or Ralph or Team Purple interrupts you with a request that kind of steals your attention, you add a sticky to that bucket. And when there are 5 or more tickets in that bucket, well, you invite that team or that person to a meeting to discuss how you can improve your collaboration. So it's a data-driven and event-driven improvement habit. Cool. And now we're getting closer here to the end. So then it's about optimizing the flow. So less is more. One really, really powerful technique of focusing on flow, completion of task instead of keeping people busy, is to walk the board instead of doing the round. So imagine this, you actually prioritized your lanes. So in this case, we have this team is working on 3 user stories, and they said that the first one is number 1, then number 2, and then number 3. And what they do in the daily stand-up, instead of doing the usual round of yesterday, today, and impediments, which can, which a little bit ranty can go. So yesterday I kept myself busy doing this. Today I'm going to keep myself busy doing that, and there's nothing preventing me from being busy. So to flip the conversation to flow and how to complete things, walk the board. So for example, instead of doing the round, you start with the top right ticket. So this the top row testing column, you start from the right. Who can help out finish testing? I can do it. Me too. Hey, cool, great. This needs to be code reviewed. Yeah, I'm on it. I'm soon done. Brilliant. Is everyone occupied? No. I have plenty of time left to work on stuff today. Cool. Move on to the next road. Okay, this needs to be code reviewed, and this needs to be completed. Cool. Is everyone busy now, or does anyone have more room? No. I have enough for today. Cool. Then you stop it. So walk the board instead of doing the round will help you focus on completion of tasks instead of being busy. Another way to help reveal when things get stuck and to focus and to see the flow is to actually break down tasks. And my recommendation is to break down big tasks into smaller tasks that shouldn't take more than a day to finish. So if you're able to do that, and you see that the same task is not moving, it stays in progress column for several days, you know that something fishy is going on. Either there's a dependency, or someone needs help, or we're waiting for something. And just the act of breaking down a big chunk of work into smaller tasks also helps you understand the problem better. So it's valuable no matter what. And then this is one of my favorite visualizations, dotting. It's ridiculously powerful. The first one to arrive at the daily stand-up takes a whiteboard marker, I don't have one here, and puts a dot on every single post-it in the doing column. And if you start building up dots on a post-it, 3, 4, 5 dots, well, you know that we need to talk about this, especially if you combine this with breaking down tasks, so the tasks themselves are smaller than one day. Then you know that someone is having a problem, is being too stubborn, is waiting for a reply. So it's a great conversation. It's a great invitation for the team to discuss how can we help out. And this is one team who did that. So they practiced dotting. And the funny thing happens is that people hate, for some reason, you don't have to explain why this is a good idea, because people hate those dots. Or at least what I learned. So when in the beginning, people tried to get out of putting that dot. Oh, I was sick yesterday. Yeah, the dot don't care. It's been in the doing column. Or I was busy doing other stuff. Please don't dot. Well, we're measuring calendar days here, so the dot goes. And there's only one way to cheat that system. If you want to game that system, it's to actually break down tasks into smaller tasks so they're faster to complete. And as an Agile coach, if that's your way to game the system, go for it. But in this team, there was one person who didn't buy into the dotting. He said, no, I don't need to break down this task. It's only going to take 3 days. Well, it took 30 days and he earned himself a high score. So we kept that as a reminder. And after that, he hated dotting. So he made sure to break down his simple work tasks to several smaller ones. But once in a while,
apologies, do you have a similar way for Jira, for example, whenever, because at this point in time, I would say in the phase of Corona, it's harder to do the dotting, right, on an actual board.
I agree. In Trello, I think there's a plugin that's going to turn your notes old and crumble.
In Jira also, it calculates the days. Like there is a border at your task at one side when it gets red when it's there for too long.
I think there is no dotting system.
Oh, there is actually. You can turn that in the board configuration, like count the number of days if it didn't change the status.
Cool.
Thank
you.
Very, very easy to do configuration with 20 seconds.
Perfect. Good to know. Thank you.
Brilliant. Then I need to alert my colleagues at CRI because they were looking for that. But yeah, it's one of the most powerful things because when a lot of dots triggers those great discussions. So maybe it turns out that someone is just too stubborn to ask for help. They're stuck, or we're actually not. No one is working on it. We're waiting for something. There's a dependency somewhere. So it always triggers great discussions, in my experience. But once in a while, when we are actually blocked and waiting, make sure to visualize that. Add a comment or a blocker note visually, for example, and it should just not be a red sticker on top of it saying this is blocked. You should also actually write down whom are we waiting for. It's a name of a person or the name of a team, so we know how to react or who to follow up with, and preferably. So in this picture, Jimmy, I created the post-it on the 8th of April. I'm waiting for Mary to decide. And you can also use the dotting technique here. So you can put a dot or a tally for every day this blocker note has been up there. So we know when, if it's been too long, we probably desperately want to act. And maybe, I don't know if this is doable in Jira. Well, of course, you can choose to have the practice at least, but I'm not sure the tooling supports it. Only allow yourself 2 avatars or only assign yourself to 2 tasks. And if you do this visually, you can have 1 avatar, 1 big colorful photo of yourself and 1 smaller monochrome gray photo. The big colorful one indicates the thing you're actually pouring energy onto. And the gray one where you help out. If you for some reason is stuck or bored with your main task, you help out somewhere else. I've seen teams who allocate kind of they tag themselves to all the tasks they're going to do sometime during the sprint. And that's just optimizing for keeping yourself busy. It does not optimize for helping each other with flow. And this is another favorite of mine, inbox, the inbox habit or the inbox principle. So as a team, you can decide that no one is ever allowed to add anything into the current sprint plan. Not someone else outside the team, nor us as team members. Quite often, developers or engineers are creative. So while I'm working on this one, I'm just going to tweak and fiddle over here as well. But that might draw attention away from the goals of the sprint, and you're actually not focusing on finishing what you started, but actually starting new work. So having an inbox, if you have an idea on more stuff you want to do that's not aligned to the goals of the sprint, or someone else has a request that doesn't fit your urgent criteria, it goes into the inbox. And the next daily stand-up, you make sure to discuss all the post-its or all the tickets in the inbox. And you, as a team, decide whether or not this goes into the sprint plan to be worked on or to the backlog or ignored. And if you have that as a rule, it can be easier to say no to other people outside the team. So when a super important boss comes and screams at you and says, this is super important, please do this and that. You as a team member, you can say, no, sorry, we have a rule in our team. This does not fulfill our urgent criteria, but I'm going to put it here. Look, I'm putting your request here. And first thing tomorrow, we're going to talk about it and I'll come back to you. I'm skipping this. And then creation of new habits. So we have all these rules and we've decided on new rules of the games maybe. So to make it easier to strengthen the habits, maybe you can gamify it. So for example, one simple thing you can do is to track your discipline. For example, in this picture, for every day, this team doesn't break the agreed upon WIP limits. They put a green dot on that calendar day. And if there's someone somewhere are breaking or working on more things than their WIP limit agreement says, It's a red dot. You can do this for other things as well. So maybe you have agreed to double down on quality and try to have fewer open bugs today than yesterday. Did we succeed in that or not? Red or green dot. Is the urgent lane clear by the end of the day? Red or green dot. If we want to, we can press the release button, green or red, and so on. Another one could be to reward yourself for doing good stuff. So here we have, for example, a team who have agreed upon a scoring system. So every day the stand-up starts on time. That's 1 marble. Every time someone has paired for with another member for 3 hours or more, it's 1 marble. When we have completed an action from the retrospective, 2 marbles. We went out for lunch together, 1 marble, and so on. And a full mob programming day is worth 5 marbles. And when the marbles in the jar crosses a line, the team rewards themselves with cake or bowling or a hack day or something. And this is a picture sent to me. I didn't create this one. So there was one team, no, actually several teams, I think. They were doing the Christmas release and they were in bug crunch mode. So they have this horrible mountain of boring, tedious bugs that no one wanted to fix, but they had to before going to Christmas holiday. So I think there was 3 or 4 people staying really, really late one evening, and they created this one. So here is the can you see the mouse? So here is the jungle of backend. Here's the swamp of front end. Here's the jungle of the database, or here. Yeah. So they created a kind of a fantasy adventure map of their system. And then the bugs, they lived somewhere on this map, right? And whenever you finished a bug, you moved it into this done area. And then you got scoring. So there were trolls and orcs and monsters here, and you got scores. And then you moved your avatar according to the number of scores. And this is a scoring board on the outer side here. The bugs were the same. However, the gamification of it made it more fun, and they could joke. And yeah, so they went on Christmas holiday with a way better feeling than usual, at least. And then a final note, if you're, instead of dotting or estimation or breaking down tasks, maybe you can just go for putting up banana peels. And if it goes brown, you know that it's been up there for way too long. And when it starts to smell, you should probably really do something about it. And if you, instead of estimating a story point, perhaps you can estimate in different kinds of fruit peels. I think they rot in different speeds. I guess the cucumber goes bad within one day. Maybe the apple peel stays fresh longer. I don't know. Well, I'm just kidding. I haven't. Actually, someone sent me this picture, but I think it's fake. So yeah, that's that. Tips for visualizing the flow, relieving the pressure, preventing overflow, agree upon rules, real bottlenecks, optimize the flow, and create new habits. Thank you for listening. So yeah. So yeah, this is me if you want to get in touch with me. I think I'm tired of hearing my own voice. Can I propose we try out this thing of creating breakout sessions? Because I've seen a few of you taking notes. So what do you say, Piotr? Can we create breakout sessions rooms with 3, 4, 5 people in each room?
No problem. 1 second.
Can I ask a question in the meantime? Maybe,
yeah.
With everyone. So do you have different ways of approaching people from different silos? Like, do you have different ways of trying to talk or convince programmers that certain things are valuable, and different things that you say to management from the client, for example?
Yeah, it's super hard, but because it's about culture and attitude and so many things. But a few things that I've succeeded with several times is to create an overarching visualization. Because if you have silencing and dependencies, or they complete this and they hand over this and that, if you have that kind of setup, try to create a visualization that visualizes the whole flow of end to end, and then gather once a week or 2 times a week and discuss the overall picture and how you need to help out. because even no, we're busy coding the next thing. We can't help you deploy, or we can't help you test, or no. To kind of get rid of that us them mentality, show the overall picture and explain, kind of continuously re-emphasize that no, we together aren't done until this thing has flown through all of our systems or all our teams. So that could be one thing, just to help people have that shared understanding. And if you meet physically, eventually you're going to build up empathy for each other's situations and needs. Oh, talking about empathy, I have another tip. Oh, this is tricky when remoting, but well, it's doable, I guess. I was working in one company where we had that situation, 2 teams, they were depending on each other. It was actually one development team, and then we had the IT tech ops team responsible for computers and systems and licenses and whatnot. And they hated the developer teams because they came with all these weird requests, and the developer teams were pissed off at the IT team because they refused everything. So what we did was that one person from the IT team sat with us doing their work. So we got them a seat. So on Mondays and Wednesdays, I think, they did their work in our room. And that made them understand and have empathy for our needs. And we also did the reverse. So we had one member of our team on, I don't know, Thursdays or Fridays or something, sitting doing work in their room, creating empathy. And that really changed things. Another final trick could be to measure things of the others. For example, there was one company, there were the development teams, they were shipping stuff. They were building, coding and building stuff. And then there was a deployment team. There's another team responsible for testing and deploying to production. They hated it when teams gave them crappy code last minute to deploy, because they know it's going to bring down production and going to reduce uptime and whatnot. And vice versa, the development teams were kind of upset with the DevOps team or deployment team, because they have all this rigorous testing and they didn't allow them to ship things that were critical. So they flipped the measurements around. So the DevOps team were now measured on uptime, and and the deployment team were measured on number of features they were able to deploy. And those metrics were discussed once a week. And then they had to figure out, wait a second. So that created a lot of new conversations. Thank you for that question.
Okay, Jimmy, can you tell me how long, what time set for breakout rooms?
Let's try 10 minutes.
Okay, got it.
We'll get it back and share what we talked about.
Are we ready?
Yes.
Let's get started. Okay.
See you soon.
See you. Wyrzuciło ciebie? Jesteś wyciszona. Oh, you're back.
Wiesz co, ja coś kliknęłam bez sensu, prawdopodobnie.
Okay, I'll try to move you one more time.
Dzięki.
I'll take a short break here, so I'll be back in 5 roughly.
Okay, no problem. So, how do I pronounce your name, forename, in Swedish?
Jimmy Janlén.
Oh my God, one more time.
Let's go for Jimmy Janlén.
So Jimmy Janlén?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, that's cool.
What did you think? Was it good?
Yeah, I think it was very good, very interesting. I love that you're using from, I think it was toolbox, Agile toolbox kit. Yeah, it was this one, the first one on the left on your screen.
Yeah.
I think it was my first book, or let's call it, I don't know, knowledge with combined with Agile. Because Piotr sent it to me when I was planning to start to work with him.
Yeah, I have a colleague who said, so when I'm teaching new Scrum Masters, I give them this book. It kind of contains everything that you need to think of and consider as a Scrum Master, camouflaged in funny visualizations.
Yeah, it is great. Because that was my start with Scrum Mastering. So it was pretty cool for me. I learned it even before I started to thinking about the certification. So for me, it was great.
How did this swapping between screens work?
Yeah, really cool, really good. Yeah.
I like it. First time I'm trying it out.